Yeah, so this is a question about scaling in here. So 3 contracts, right? So this the trade is going to start off with 3 contracts, and then hopefully 2 of the profit targets get filled, and so the last remaining contract is going to be, sounds like it's going to be a runner, or a trailing a runner there, and then the question is, so here's the real question, which is how to add 2 more contracts back if there are additional entry signals, obviously in the same direction there. Yeah, additional entry signals there. All right. Yeah, so there's our question. So let's tackle this one. So, all right, let's get BlackBird open. First thing I'm going to do is I actually do have a kind of a file here that I use for testing, and demonstrating questions like this. So I'm going to load those BloodHound signals. All right, so it's my crossover test 2 file. And then, let's see here. Now I got to find the logic template. There it is. Price inflection with the MACD filter. All right, so I'm going to get the those BloodHound signals on the chart first. So to do that, I need to reload the chart so we can get NinjaTrader to load up BloodHound. And there we go. So now we have BloodHound, right? So here we go. So we can see we have a bunch of entry signals, right, in the same direction. So it kind of fits perfectly with this question here. So, all right. So now the next part is setting up all of these order sets here, right? So let's just start with a market entry, and let's just use a short profit target there. Let's see, yeah, I'm on a 15 range today because, man, the markets have been really volatile. So 10 ticks ought to be hit pretty quick. And then let's see here. Let's make this stop loss. Oh, wait, let's see here. Yeah, I'm going to make this stop loss a little wider just in case. I guess I don't think it'll matter for answering this question, but just in case. All right. So there's one contract. So now let's add another order set, and I'm just going to copy A like so. And then I'll adjust the profit target. Right. We'll just make it 15 ticks. There we go. And so this third one, this will be our runner here. So let's copy, we can copy A or B there. And so this one will be the trailing. So let me, let's get rid of that. Actually, I'm going to get rid of the profit target. All right. And so for the stop loss, let's go into the trailing here. So I'm going to use this quick list trailing one, and there we go. I'll just go with the ATR one again, and I'm going to adjust it here so it matches the other 3.5 ATR stop losses. So let's just knock that down. All right, so that's the initial placement. And now we also, because it's trailing, you need to go into the trailing actions here to make sure the trailing is also 3.5 ATRs. Right, so here we go. Here's our action, right, is moving that stop loss, takes the last price minus 1.5 ATRs. So we need to adjust that 1.5 ATRs down to 3.5 ATRs. There we go. So now we got the trailing matched up there. And, all right. So this is the first group of orders there, right? The initial 3 contracts there, right, on the initial entry signal, right? So now to scale in, right, if to scale in on additional trade signals there, we need to add additional order sets, right? So for each every time you want to scale in, you need to add an order set. So, all right, so BlackBird doesn't have the ability to just keep scaling in more and more and more, as a safety check there. So you have to keep adding additional order sets there every time you want to scale in a contract. All right. So probably at some point when BlackBird kind of gets a major overhaul and redesign, we'll have some kind of mechanism so that you can actually assign a specific order set as a scale-in order, but when you do that, you need more controls so that BlackBird knows when exactly, a dedicated order set is to scale in there. All right. So there's a whole nother level of, mechanics and software that needs to go in behind that. So, right. So BlackBird doesn't have that for now. So for now, you do have to add an order set for every scale-in contract that you want to keep adding to it. So let's see here. So let's actually so I'm going to copy A. Right? I'm going to copy order set A. So that's this order set over here. So let me copy A. All right. So when this scales in, it's just going to have another additional 10 tick profit target there. So and so now to make this a scale in contract, we need to modify the entry order here. Right. So we have this place and cancel. So this is kind of a workaround, for scaling in there. So with the place, right, we need to add prerequisites, right? So we don't want order set D to be submitted with the first three. So this placement is a way to add secondary requirements before this gets submitted to the market here. And one of those requirements is, let's see, order status changed, right? So as the question said, the scale-in contracts can only scale in after the first two order sets, right, have been, after the profit targets, right, or the first two order sets, have been filled there, right? So with the order status changed here, with this trigger, right, we can select what order that we want to monitor. And in this case, right, let's monitor the profit target. And we want to know when it is filled, right? So we need profit target for order set A to be filled. And we're going to need the profit target for order set B to be filled as well. So let's add, actually, we need to switch over to the Advanced tab here, down below. So on the Advanced tab, we can add additional triggers here. So let's add another order status changed there. And so here, we also need to make sure that the profit target for B is filled, right? So the first order status, right, is making sure that profit target A is filled, and the second one is making sure that B is filled, right? So we want to make sure these two order sets are right, taken out of play. So there. Now, right, the complicated thing about scaling in, and teaching, explaining to, getting software to understand when is it okay to scale in and when is it not. Well, basically the difficulty is the cancel, right? So now we need to explain when the scale-in orders should not be go in anymore. right? So typically, right, when your stop losses are hit, well, that trade is probably over with, right? So you're not scaling in anymore. Right? So this is something that you have to figure out, you know, for your system, when is the trade designated as being done and over with, right? And so you're no longer trying to scale in to that trade there. Right? So I'm just going to go with the stop losses being hit there. Right? So let's see here. So the cancel. I'm going to switch over to the advanced tab here, and so we put the interval here because that gets used a lot. That's common, but for this situation, I'm actually going to get rid of it. I'm going to delete that interval trigger, and we're going to add the order status changed again here. And my guess would be that, right, our runner here, order set C, if that stop loss gets hit, then probably the trade is over. Again, these are personal decisions that everybody has to make on their own here, but I'm just going to go with that. So I'm going to check to see if the stop loss for C, right, or trailing stop loss, if it is filled, right? And if it's filled, then that cancels our scaling in. So this is the key here, using the place, right? Using the place to describe, when is it okay for this order set to go in, and then use the cancel to tell BlackBird, when all these scale in orders should no longer, be scaled in, and just cancel them all. So let's see here. All right, so we got 10 tick, and let's see. Let me just double check. And this should be just a fixed stop loss, I believe, because I did copy A. Yep. Okay, great. So there's no trailing. All right. So now, actually, let's name these here. There we go. So this is our runner. We'll call it the runner. All right. Yeah. So, yeah. So you can rename all your order sets if you want to. All right. So now I'm going to copy our first scale in, which is order set D, right? And so when I copy this order set, it has all of those placement rules copied and the cancel copied for you all ready to go there. Right, so it can save some time. And now I just need to go in and adjust that profit target to, right? Adjust your profit target to whatever you want there. So I'll just, knock this one up to 15 again. Right, and then I can change the name here. There. All right, so first scale in for E. And then we just basically rinse and repeat this process over and over and over again for each set of the two contracts to scale in, right? So in this case, this is a set. An additional two contracts can scale in. So if you're only scaling in one contract at a time, right, then your placement conditions are going to change, right? And I'll show you that in this right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create one more set of scale-in orders here, so I can show you how to adjust those placement rules for the second set and the third set and the fourth set, on and on. So let's copy. There you go. First scale in for D, right? So that has our 10 tick profit target there. And change the name here. All right, so that's our second scale in, order set F. And now we need to go into the entry order, and we're gonna adjust the placements here, right? So since this is the second scale in order set, you know, we're not waiting for profit target A to be filled, right? This second order set's now going to be waiting for the first scale in orders to be filled, right? So we're going to change this. Let's see, where is it? There we go. So first scale in D, yeah. Let's make sure that that profit target, right, is filled. And then let's go into this other order status changed here. And let's see, E, we're looking for E. There it is. So there's the profit target for E. Yeah, so there's our first scale in E profit target, and we want to make sure that one is filled, right? So we want to make sure that these two profit targets are filled before the second set of scale in contracts can go in there, right? So, and you know, I'm just going to assume that the cancel is, you know, is for this, since I don't know exactly, you know, what determines when this trade is over. I'm just going to stick with, you know, if this stop loss ever gets filled, then that means the, you know, the trade's done and over with. So I'm just going to stick with that theme there. All right, so we have a second scale in here, and we'll just add one more. So let's copy E, and we'll copy E there. Actually, no, you know what? I'm going to copy F. That's going to be a little quicker there. Let me copy second scale in F, right? Because the only thing I have to change is the profit target here. There we go. Oh, one more. There we go, 15 ticks. And, you know, just to double check here. So the placements here. So when remember I copied F to make G, right? And I copied F because F already has these order status changed, right? It already has the correct orders already selected there for me, right? So we're making sure that the first scale in profit target is filled, and the second order status changed here, right? That is checking that the first scale in set E, making sure that profit target is filled, right? So there we go. So those placements were already set up for me. So that's why I copied F instead of copying E. So that saved me a bit of time there. Yeah. And so there you go. So you just repeat that sequence over and over and over again. So for every time we want to scale in there. So that way, you know, there's a bit of a safeguard in place, you know, to make sure that, you know, your strategy doesn't go run wild and just keep scaling in forever and, you know, ever and ever and ever. So, yeah, there we go. All right, here comes the fun part. Let's test this out. Oh, hold on. Hold on. Yeah, I was so focused on making on the profit target here. We need to go back and visit these again. And there's one more critical component here, which is the signals, right? We're only scaling in when we get an additional trade signal there. So we need to add that as a requirement inside the place as well. And let's see here. So we have two options here. We have BloodHound Signals. Let's see. And we have Trade Signal Trigger. So let's see here. So yeah, let me kind of cover the differences here. So the Trade Signal Trigger, right? It's counting the signals there, right? And so it has a very specific signal number, right? So if I use Trade Signal Trigger, right, order set D will only be submitted on the first signal, right, after after the first entry, right? So in other words, this would be the first secondary signal there, right? So you can see that, and that's a specific number there. So if we use the Trade Signal Trigger, the one thing that you got to make sure is that let's close this out here, and all right, so this is obviously the first entry signal there, right, after the shorts there. So that's the initial one, and right, and all these rest of these longs are going to be the scale in, right, the scale in ones. So with the Trade Signal, Trade Signal Trigger. Yeah, so with the Trade Signal Trigger there, yeah, so with this, right, that would, so setting it to number 1 means this order set only gets submitted on this trade signal, on the first one. So what happens if our profit targets aren't filled yet, right? So remember, we also need profit target A and profit target B have to be filled, right, in order for these scaling contracts to be submitted there, right? So what happens if your first trade signal comes in, your first scale in trade signal comes in, right, but your profit targets aren't filled? Well, this guy has been missed. So the signal is missed, and you'll never get it back, right? That's the first, and it's always going to be the first, right? So that's one thing that you have to seriously consider when you're using the Trade Signal Trigger there. Yeah. So the Trade Signal Trigger probably won't work in this situation. Again, depends on your signals and whatnot. Obviously, the example entry signals I have, we just saw there on the chart, that the Trade Signal Trigger is not going to work, because the first two profit targets won't be filled there. So I'm not going to go with that option this time. But this is the easiest solution. So, this is the easiest thing to set up there. Let's just say, okay, on my, on the first scale in signal, boom, scale this in. So this works great, but again, I guess here's the point I'm trying to make is if you have other requirements, as a part of your placement, if you have other requirements, right, those other requirements might interfere when that first scale-in trade signal comes along. So so just evaluate that very carefully. So I'm going to delete the Trade Signal Trigger, and I'm going to go with the BloodHound Signals here. All right. And there we go. Let's open that up a little bit more. All right, so when using the BloodHound signals, you could actually use a totally separate BloodHound file that's specifically built for your scaling signals here. But we're not going to do that here. I'm just going to use my crossover test, right, trace signals, and select the same logic template. There we go, right? So this BloodHound template and this logic template, right, is the same one that's being used for the entry signals here. Right? And of course, we're looking for signals in the same direction, right? So yeah, for a scale-in contract, you do have to use signals in the same direction there. So I would not try to get your system to work with signals in the opposite direction, right? So if we're in a long trade, signals in the opposite direction would be short signals, right? So I would not try and get that to work. You probably could, but so obviously make sure that your scale-in signals are in the same direction as the initial, right, the very first trade signal. So, okay, so the BloodHound signals is just going to monitor every signal coming in here, right? So, yeah, so let me evaluate everything here. Yeah, so we got the order status changed, right? So we're making sure profit target A is filled, profit target B is filled, and then we're just monitoring the trade signals coming in. Yeah, okay. I think that's good for D. So now for E, all right, so we're going to go into the place. Now for E, right, we need to make sure that D has been placed. Right, so I'm going to add another order status changed here. I'm going to add another one. All right, so this third order status change is we're going to make sure that D has been submitted. Right, so let's see, let's go down here, and where is it? Yeah, so there's a couple ways we could do this. We could check the entry order, right? We can just say, okay, if the entry order has been placed or filled, right? Then obviously we know D was submitted there, right? Or we could also check if the profit target, right? We can check if this profit target has been placed. There we go, right? So we can check to see, if the profit target has been placed, obviously not filled, because these two, all right, can scale in as a group. After order set A and B, right? Once those are filled, then the next two can go in there. Right? So either way, let's see here. I'm going to go back to, I'm going to make sure that the entry order is filled. Yeah, filled or placed, either way. Yeah. And, oh. And next, we need to add the BloodHound signals. All right, so let's add our BloodHound signals here. There we go. Select our crossover test. And there we go. There's our entry signals. And yeah, all right. So, let me kind of recap here. Right, if you're using the BloodHound signals, because it's not counting signals, right, like that. So, right, so going back to the first option here, right, the trace signal triggers, right, this is counting the signals. The BloodHound signals is not counting it, so we had to kind of put in another check to make sure that E didn't go in too soon. Right, so that's why we have this this third order status change. Right, we want to make sure that the entry order for D, right, is filled, so that we know this has been placed first before E is submitted there. Right, so if you're gonna use the BloodHound signals, yeah, you do need to have checks in place, to make sure that your order doesn't go in too soon, right? Make sure it goes in after, after whatever other orders you want it to go in with. All right, I think that should do it. And so let's go. Actually. So I'm gonna delete F and G to save me some time here, and let's copy D. All right, so here's our second scale in, our 10 tick profit target, and let's go into the entry order and adjust the placement rules here. All right, yeah, so we want to make sure that the profit target for D is filled. Let's see, yeah, there's D, make sure the profit target's filled. And the next order status changed, same thing. We want to make sure, there we go, the profit target for E. Yeah, so we want to make sure that both of these profit targets for the first scale in set there are filled, so make that adjustment. And we already have the BloodHound signals in place, so I think we're good. Yeah, I think that's all is necessary, right? So for our second scale in set, we just need to make sure that the first two profit targets, that the two profit targets for the first scale in set are filled. All right, so I think that will do it. So now let's just make a copy of second scale in F, make a copy of that there. Adjust the profit target. All right, and go into the entry order, and we have to adjust some of these place options. Let's see, yeah, so again, actually let's see. Yeah, that's correct. Yep, we want to make sure that profit target D is filled and profit target E is filled. And there we go. So we need to add another order status changed there. All right, so here's our third order status changed. And this is where we're going to make sure that, there we go, that our second scale in set F, make sure that that entry order, make sure it's been filled. There we go. Right, so I added this third order status changed here to make sure that the entry order was filled. Right, so before G goes in, we want to make sure that F goes in first, and then G goes in afterwards, just like how we did with E, right? With E, we wanted to make sure that D went in first, and then E can go in, right? So if you remember this entry order, this entry order, it also has 3 order status changed here, right? So the second one, right, in the group here, right, has that, right? It's only the second one that has 3 order status changed because we want to make sure that the entry order, you know, right, for the first one in the group is filled, right, submitted there. All right, yeah. So that's what I did here for G. And let's go ahead and change that name there. There. All right. Okay, now we got all of the prerequisite conditions in place there. So let's go and test this out. Let's see here. All right, so we have our 3 contracts on. And yeah, one thing you're probably going to want to do here is, at least while you're testing this, is we want to pull up the order monitor. There we go. And okay, wow, yeah, that went quick on the shorts here. Yeah, shoot, markets are moving so quickly there. Basically all the scale-ins already went in. Boom, boom, boom. Let me close that out and we'll start again here. All right, so the first set, right? So A, B, and C are filled. So D, E, F, and G are pending. And everything was canceled since that stop loss just got hit. So great, we had a test of that. And again, stop loss was hit. So there you go, everything was canceled. Right, which is good. Yeah, we want to make sure that all these scale-in contracts are, being canceled when that stop loss gets hit, or or whatever it is, that determines that your scaling contracts should be canceled. So all right, let's see if we get these profit targets filled here. All right, so we're just waiting for the next signal to come in. That was quick. Boy. Oh, okay. So there we go. So we do actually need to adjust the rules here. Yeah, because I just saw that D and E, right, the first scale-in set, both orders went in at the same time there. All right. So let's go and make that adjustment here. Let's see. Yeah, so we want E to go in after D. Let's see. So what were we doing here? All right, so let's go into the placement. And let's check our order status changed. All right. So I guess, yeah, because the market orders get filled instantly, you know, it's being considered as filled. Yeah. Let's see if the mode here can change something. Okay, yeah, let's try using the in sequence here. All right, so actually, I'm going to leave it the same. Yeah, so in sequence, yeah, so for in sequence, profit target A needs to be filled first. Uh-oh. Well, that wasn't good. Okay, let's get an NinjaTrader up and running again. Hold on a minute, folks. Well, with any luck, I think most of what was built in BlackBird will be saved, but I didn't save it to file. So we'll see here. And, oh shoot, as NinjaTrader loves to do is quite often your strategies get disconnected from the chart. Yeah, this is a long-running issue with NinjaTrader. All right, let's just rebuild it from scratch. All right, so rebuilding from scratch here, and yeah, I should have saved that. Something in my head told me to save it to a file, and I didn't listen to my instincts. The hardest part was figuring it out the first time. We're kind of back to the point here that I was working on, which is to make sure that, right, our second scale in doesn't go in at with the same BloodHound signal, right, as our first scale in D, right? So we want E to go in on the second signal, or on the next signal after D goes in. That's right. So I was using in sequence here. Yeah, so we got that. The mode set to in sequence. And let me add another order status changed. I'm going to move that up. There we go. So our third order status changed. Yeah, let's make sure that, let's see, there we go. Entry order is filled for D. Yeah, so we want D to be filled, right? And then the BloodHound signal comes in. There we go. So I think that'll fix our problem here where D and E both going in on the same BloodHound signal. So, and all right. So now let's create the second scale-in set. All right, go into the place and adjust the profit targets that we want to monitor. There we go. All right, so the profit target for D, and this will be the profit target for E. There we go. All right, profit target for E. And yeah, and our BloodHound signals is already good to go. All right, so there we go. We're done with that. All right. Now, let's see. Yeah, so let's copy F. All right, got the name in there. Let's increase our profit target. Let's see. Oh, yeah. This time I'm going to go with 20 ticks. Yeah, let me adjust this other one over here. Yeah, the markets are just moving too quickly to be able to make sure that to be able to see the sequence of things on the chart. So hopefully going with 20 ticks will buy me a little more time, to see all those changes going on there. All right, so back to the editing the placement requirements here for G. There we go for G. Yeah, so G, let's see, yeah. So we're making sure that D and E are filled. Yep. And so let's add that other order status changed. And I'm going to move it above the BloodHound signal. There we go. So here is our third order status changed. And we want to make sure that entry order F is filled. There we go. There's entry order F, and make sure it's been filled. And let's see, our mode is in sequence. And then, all right, the BloodHound signal comes afterwards. Okay. There we go. So again, the changes I was making, right, I was changing the mode to in sequence there. Right. All right, so this time let's save this out. All right, I think that's a pretty good name. Yeah, if anybody emails in to support for this BlackBird file, I might change the name here. I might tweak it a little bit better. So, all right. Usually I can think better when I'm not under the gun, right? Like most of us. All right, let's give this a try here. So again, let's open up the order monitor panel there. And actually, you know what? Let's pull this out. Yeah. There. All right. Okay, so let's, oh, hold on. We need to reload the chart here so we can get BloodHound loaded, get those BloodHound signals loaded. So there we go. Let's reload the chart. All right. All right, let's get the auto trailing enabled. Boy. All right, that's a lot of signals there. Okay, there's our first 3 contracts, first 3 order sets. And all right, looks like, there we go, we're going short. And, oh, no, D and E are still going in at the same time. Okay. All right, so I'm just going to double check the placement here for E. Yeah. All right. Well, so instead of using the entry order, I'm going to check the profit target. Yeah, so I could check either the, oops, I went down too far. Where is it? There we go. So I could check either the stop loss or the profit target there. So yeah, I don't think it matters which, but I'm going to go with the stop loss because the stop loss is placed last. All right. So if you were reading the change log with the last updates that we pushed out, we changed the submission order of the stop loss and the profit targets, right? So when BlackBird was first created, we set it up so that the stop loss was submitted first, right, as a safety precaution, right, as a best practice, right? Put in your risk mitigation first. So that means submit your stop loss first, and then submit your profit target. But of course, that was creating a lot of let's see. There's a couple of things here. So because NinjaTrader has been kind of changing things around on the back end and creating those new error messages with submitting stop losses on the wrong side of the market and so on and so forth. But also, let's see, what was it? Yeah, the big issue that NinjaTrader had changed is right, the profit target and stop loss are an OCO, as the name tells you. So if you submit your stop loss first and it gets instantly filled, then NinjaTrader can't comprehend that the profit target, right, that gets submitted at the same time is an OCO with a stop loss. And so NinjaTrader is creating these false error messages about using a OCO ID number again. So, technical issues on the back end. So because of that, BlackBird now submits the profit target first, because for some reason, if the profit target gets filled, it doesn't create that false OCO ID when the stop loss goes in. So immediately afterwards. So since the profit target goes in first, stop loss goes in second. That's why I'm choosing to check the stop loss not filled. We want to know when the stop loss is placed, so we want to make sure that, right, the stop loss here for D is placed right before E goes in. So the stop loss is placed, and then, so because this is all in sequence, then we'll check for the next BloodHound signal. Right. Yeah. So that is my thinking, in regards to, should I check the profit target first or should I check the stop loss first? Right. So technically, the stop loss, is submitted like less than a millisecond after the profit target. I mean, yeah. So, all right. So let's see if that does it. If that does the trick. And I'm going to make the same change for G as well. All right, let's go into the place. And all right, so our third order status changed trigger. Yeah, so instead of monitoring the market order, where is it? Yeah, we're going to change it to the stop loss. There is stop loss for F. All right, and make sure it's been placed. There we go. And then we have the BloodHound signals afterwards. All right, so let's give that a try. See how that works. All right, let's save it. And all right, turn on the auto trading, and it looks like the market's kind of slowed down on us a little bit. All right, yeah, I think the market's gonna, actually no, it's gonna consolidate for a little bit more here. Let's see. Oh, geez. Oh, there we go. There's G and F. Okay, great. So again, yeah, G and F went in at the same time. Well, all right. Let's let this run through one more time here. Let's see. That was, oh. All right. So Yeah, things are just moving too fast these days. Man. All right, hold on. I'm going to have to go with a larger chart here. All right, let's try well, let's see, what am I on again? I'm on a 15 range. Yeah, let's go with the 25 range here. All right, hopefully, yeah, spreading those profit targets apart will, yeah, kind of slow things down a little bit. All right, so now we're waiting for D and E to go in. Oh, okay. No, we're switching to longs now. Yeah, we're still getting both scale and sets, yeah, going in at the same time. Well, all right. Well, yeah, I'm just trying to think of some other way to, some other solution, some other way, that we can uh, view this, to see what we can monitor with order D, to make sure that D's going in first, before E goes in. Well, yeah, Raj, I can't think of anything. I'm gonna have to check with Jeremy to see, um, find out the details behind, I think really it comes to probably the mode in sequence here. Yeah, I'm gonna have to check with Jeremy on the details of, how the coding on that is actually working. Because I'm not sure, if this is a bug or not. Um, there could be like, in other situations, um, even though you're using in sequence, um, other traders will might consider that, the BloodHound signal comes in, at the same time that the order for D, whether it's the entry order or the profit targets, the BloodHound signal, or so even though technically, the BloodHound signal comes in first, which then triggers, right, D to be submitted. So your entry order is submitted and filled first, and then your profit target's placed, and then your stop loss is placed. But under some situations, traders might consider that all kind of like one sequence, right, on the same bar. And so maybe Jeremy, adjusted the in sequence to allow for that subtle micro millisecond difference there, you know, to address, you know, traders thinking that way. So, yeah. Or maybe there's actually, you know, some little line of code here that's allowing this to all be considered within at the same time when it wasn't supposed to be. I don't know. So yeah. Well, you know what? Yeah, let me try in sequence here. So I'm going to put this back. I'm simultaneously. So let's try simultaneously again. You know, because this time I'm looking at a different order here. So I'm looking at the stop loss being placed versus the entry order being filled. Yeah, so I don't know, maybe that might make some kind of technical difference on the back end evaluation there. So yeah, let's give that a try. So let's click OK and let's change G. All right, so change the mode to simultaneously. And let me just double check. Oop, no, I don't want the BloodHound signals. There we go. I want this third order status changed. Yeah, that's making sure the stop loss is placed. Okay. All right. Yeah, simultaneously. All right, let's give that a quick try. So I think that's kind of, yeah, the last thing we can try here and see if that works. All right, let's get this turned on. And let's see what happened here. Wow, okay, so we got filled and filled already. And nope, yeah, so that didn't do it. D and E both went in at the same time. Yeah. All right. Yeah. All right, so kind of going back to the way the question was phrased, right? So we can see that adding two contracts back in when another signal comes in, right? It is working, but we just can't separate the two orders within the same group. Yeah, we can't separate them onto different BloodHound signals, onto different entry signals. Yeah. So, I mean, at least, you know, the first set, you know, is going in together on the first BloodHound signal, and then the second set is going in on the second BloodHound. Well, after the profit targets, right, are filled there. So, yeah. So, yeah, yeah. So it's a matter of the details there. Yeah.